Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 260. Today I'm going to talk about Fleet Arctic Bounty, which is the expansion to Fleet. Fleet was one of my top games from 2012, a game I really enjoy. And I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it now because I really don't know how to start my review of it. I think that the expansion takes it to the point where I feel like it should probably be in the top 100 on Board Game Geek. I think it's a really good game, and it moves it into one of my, favorite games of all time. I should just have a little bit of a disclaimer. I played the heck out of it in prototype form. Matt Riddle was kind enough to send me a prototype before the Kickstarter, I think, even ran. And so my lunch group and I played the heck out of it. I think we played it every day for like 2 weeks straight. And really enjoyed it. It hasn't changed really at all from what we played. There's a couple of additions, from stretch goals to the Kickstarter. Anyway, so there's the review. I'll talk more about it, in more detail at the end. But let's go into the walkthrough. I'll show you some of the new stuff. I won't get into too much how to play the game. It's pretty straightforward anyway. But I will talk about how, as I'm talking about the new cards and things, how they kind of change up the game and things. So let's take a look. All right, so you get a whole bunch of new stuff here, and I've kind of just laid everything out. I'll zoom in closely and talk about everything. Here you can see all the different types of licenses here that you're going to get. Here's the corresponding different cards, some of the different bay cards and dot cards, or the special cards that you might get. You got some crab meeples over there, and then just to give you a sense of, there's all the other stuff. These are some of the cards from the base game. You get some extra cubes. These fish meeples don't come with it. I got those extra when the game first came out. You get these extra dice and stuff. Some of this stuff is going to be Kickstarter exclusives. I think they'll be available outside of Kickstarter. I'm not 100% sure on that. You'll have to go on Board Game Geek and ask on the forums if you get this game at a later date and you see something here that you don't have. So I would go and check that out. So let's go and talk about a couple of different things. I'll go into the licenses first, as well as some of the new boat cards that go with them, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the bay cards, the dot cards, some of the extra little kind of nooks and crannies that go around the core game. And I will say before I start, the game can play 5 to 6 players. I've not played it with 5 or 6 players. I've only played it 2, 3, and 4. But it will also play solitaire now, which I have tried, and it's okay. It actually does a fair job of simulating an AI. We can see here we have Captain Kirkman there, familiar face to certain board game fans of games like Viva Java, and here is Mr. Captain TC Petty there. So these folks here make games with Dice Hate Me, as well as some other companies, I believe. So there's a little chart and stuff for that. I'll talk about that in more detail, but it can play single player. It's pretty cool. You can actually kind of use the system for as a variant for 2 players, which I'll talk about in a minute. But let's go ahead and jump into the licenses first and then go from there. So I've got here the license as well as the corresponding boat card, just to give you a little sense of the art. I always like the art on these cards here. So first we have the char here. And this one gives you an extra launch and an extra captain. So normally you can launch 1 boat, captain 1 boat. This gives you a bonus. It does stack with the COD license from the base game. You'll see here, if you have 1 license, you get a free captain. So instead of playing a card from your hand, you can draw a card off the top of the deck and then use that as your captain. So that's pretty handy. If you get 2 licenses, you get a free buck when paying for a boat launch only. And then you get a similar special ability here to the base game, where if you launch any boat, you get to draw a card. So basically 1 card only. So the next card here is the Pacific Oyster, which is an interesting card. Now the interesting thing with a Pacific Oyster boat is that when it catches fish towards the end of the round, you can put 1 crate on the boat itself and 1 on the license itself. If you see this, you actually catch 2 fish per round. You can put both on here, or you can put 1 on each, and that's your choices. Now the capacity of the boat here is a little bit higher, so it has a capacity of 6, 8, 10, and 12 based on how many licenses you have. Now, any crates that you put on the license itself are not going to be worth points at the end of the game, but you can trade them in to pay for things. So basically they're worth $1 each. So it's kind of an interesting alternative to the processing vessel. Now you can't use crates from here on the processing vessel, to draw cards or anything. And it should be noted that if you get one of these salty captains on here that normally catch 2 per turn, these abilities do not stack. So we have next the Swordfish. This is a really cool card. So if you take a look at here, with a Swordfish license, you can declare any boat that you have face up as, I'm not going to catch fish with that boat, but I'm going to catch cards instead. So you can see here the ability will actually go up. If you have one Swordfish license, you can designate one boat, it will catch you a card. So you won't put any crates on there, but you'll get a card all the way up to 4 boat cards. And that can be quite an effective way to get a lot of cards in your hand. It's going to combo nicely with some of the other effects in the game. So that's your Swordfish. And next we have the Canadian DFO, which is an interesting little card, especially towards the end of the game. If you look at the actual boat card itself, you can see the symbol there. This means this sucker does not catch any fish. He just steals fish. And so when you launch him, you're going to take 3 crates from other players. You can take at most 1 per player. And then at the end of the game, based on the number of licenses you have, the number of crates is going to be equal worth that many victory points apiece. So if I launch this guy, we're playing, let's say, a 3-player game. So there's going to be 2 other people. I'm going to launch it, get 2 crates on here, and then as I try to grab licenses, the value for each of those crates is going to go up. Very interesting. It's almost like a premium license in a sense, because this boat's not going to do a ton for you. It is worth 2 victory points, but it doesn't sit there and catch fish or do anything, and it's only going to happen that one time. And I should say, I almost forgot, if you don't take a full 3 crates, you get the other crates from the supply, if you don't have your 3. But this is kind of interesting towards the end of the game, as players kind of try to maneuver around this, you having this. So a lot of times these will be bought in hate, if you will. Next we have the Salmon, and this is, I believe, a Kickstarter promotional card. Let me just check here. Yeah, that is a promotional card. So this one actually, when you go to catch fish during the fishing phase, you actually can draw a card off the top of the deck, and then you can either choose to keep the card or tuck it under a already captained boat. So let me explain that a little bit. So this is going to basically, let's say I had a salmon here like that. Then I can draw on a card and I can keep it, or I can tuck it under here, and then in addition to the capacity of this boat, it kind of extends the boat here, and I can catch 4 more fish with that one there, and then it caps out there. And then as you can see here, you actually can draw more cards, and you can keep some or tuck others under boats. And you can only ever have kind of 1 tuck card under each of these boats with the Salmon here. And then we come to our Marina, which is a premium license. Doesn't have any boat associated with it. Now once during the launch phase, you can take and secretly take a card out of your hand and stick it under here. The most victory points you can get with the bonus is 8. So we have already a straight up 7 victory point bonus, and then you're going to take the victory points on the cards itself. So you can stick 8 victory points worth under there, and this will get you some extra points to the game. So as you can see, that actually kind of combos nicely with the Swordfish. So there's some interesting combos there. Now, interestingly enough, there are 3 of these cards here. These are higher crewman licenses. What's going to happen here, you can shuffle these in the deck or not. A lot of this stuff is configurable, obviously, because what you're going to do is choose which licenses you're going to use. Maybe some from the base game, some from the expansion, all from the expansion, all from the base game. So you can kind of configure this game a lot more than you could previously. So what you can do, if you choose, is shuffle these higher crewmen in here. And so when you go to flop the cards for auction, if you flop one of these, you set it aside, and then on the next auction phase, in the next turn, then you're going to take and you're going to stick these crewmen here. You're going to draw from a deck of these, and then you're going to stick these along with a license there. So the next round comes along, we have a Marina. So when I'm bidding on the Marina, I'm bidding for the license and the crewmen here. And these crewmen actually do different special abilities. So let's go over a few of these, and I'll just zoom in here on the icons there. So this guy here is, you get him, put him in front of you, and then you put 4 crates on him immediately, and then at any time you can use the crate there to get $1. So basically it generates for you $4. And if you do leave them on here, they do count as a point. This guy, when you take him, you actually count as an artisan fisherman, and I'll just show you those now. These are new cards. Here's an artisan fisherman here. Basically, it's just a little guy fishing all by himself. It's got a capacity of 1, but you know, it's a quick way to get out a bunch of boats here. You know, they don't fish you very much, but you can get them out, and they're worth 2 points. And so this guy basically counts as one of those style cards there. Now this guy here is another one of those. And then this one here is all launched and captained boats of this type +1 during the fishing phase. So what you do is you associate this with your license, and then so now all the cards of that you know are associated with that license and are of that boat type are going to catch extra fish. When you get this, you play it immediately. You draw 3 cards and discard 1. Same with this one. This is a very strong card here. So this actually gives you an extra launch on your launch phase. So normally you can launch 1 boat per turn. So the first time you get this, you can play it and you put it down in front of you, and that will give you, again, 2 launches on that turn. And then on a later turn, you can take and discard this one, and then that will give you a bonus launch on another turn. So you got to do them 2 separate times here. Here's another one with the license. This is a nasty one here. All other players don't fish this round. So I think that's the other one there. Oh, here's a tugboat here. I'll talk about the tugboats. This is a very cool card, along with also the Gone Fishing card here. So I'm going to just zoom out a little bit so I can see what's going on here. So this is cool. You can buy this for $3. It's not going to give you any points. You don't need a license to launch it or anything. And then during your fishing phase, you can draw a card and stick it underneath there. And you can do that every fishing phase, as many as you want. And then anytime they're in the game, you can discard the tugboat out of the game, and you grab all of the cards, and then you have a huge fist of cards. But you're basically kind of, you know, spending a little bit of money up front to get this and then be able to do that. So I think that's all of these cards. So let's talk a little bit about these dock cards and these bay cards here. I've already shown you 2 of them. One is the Artisan Fisherman and the other is the Tugboat. Now I've also talked about one here called Gone Fishing. Now this one, the rules even say, and I totally agree with this, because this is probably our favorite addition to the expansion here, is the Gone Fishing card. And now, if you do not buy a license on a turn, you can grab this. So you pass on all the licenses, you grab this, it's worth 2 points if you keep it, but you put it in front of you and you basically have 2 free bucks to spend on anything you want. So this makes the game very interesting and dynamic, because a lot of times, you know, with the base game, you kind of always wanted to buy a license. Not really. There were certain times that you wanted to pass, but I mean, we played the heck out of this game. So we got good enough, I think everybody equal enough skill level that there was not really a runaway leader problems. We did see that early on in our plays, but this really helps to balance it out. It kind of makes it a little bit more newbie friendly and makes it a little bit more flexible. So, you know, you can see, so I passed on the license because I'm really trying to wait for a license that's going to combo with what I already have. That's really the main point here. So if somebody else is running shrimp, you know, and then they just keep getting flop shrimp, and I'm like, yeah, I can go and buy 1 shrimp, but it's just 1 shrimp. They've already got 1 or 2, and I've got 0. I don't really want to get into shrimp. I've already got a processing vessel or whatever the thing is. I can pass and kind of wait for my license to come out, and you kind of have to think twice, because the person that buys the license spends the money on the license. You've now retained money you haven't spent on the license, and you've gotten 2 free bucks for that. So this makes it very, very interesting and dynamic, and adds a lot of interesting, you know, flavor, I guess, to the auctions. So just so we're clear here, the Gone Fishing card and all of these crewmen that can come out and be paired with the auction, I would say, are must adds. You should just add these no matter what licenses you're playing with. They really spice up the game. And in addition to, you know, this kind of changing up the auctions, these obviously change it up, because now you're not just bidding on a license, you're bidding on the license plus the crewman, or you're bidding against somebody that's trying to get the license and a crewman. So if a shrimp comes out and a tugboat guy is with it, then it's like, holy cow, I don't want him to definitely get both of those. So these change up the dynamics of the auctions quite a bit, and I would say they are must additions. And we've got here 3 promotional kinds of things here. First is the houseboat. We can put these out. You can buy them for $3. If you hold on to them, they're worth 2 points. They stay in front of you, and you can discard them at any time to play $5 for any one single transaction. So if you're really trying to get a premium license or something, you can buy this early and then discard it for $5 later. So you basically net $2. We didn't really get into this one too much. Probably my least used, maybe least favorite part of the expansion, but we did use them a little bit. So anyway, so we have the first mate here, and then at the time when you buy a captain, you can actually pay here a fish and discard a boat card, and then you can put him along with a captain. So you can see here you're going to get 2 points if you just buy him, you get 2 points. But if the boat is full of fish, you get 5 points. So that's kind of a cool thing as well. And then lastly here we have an interesting little piece here. You have these trophies. And the rules say to go ahead and just shuffle these up and then draw 3 of these. Think of these kind of like goals and as Race for the Galaxy kind of thing. Really cool. So first to have 15 crates on a launched boat. So you get 15 crates, you take it. If both of you hit it on the same turn, you basically goes in turn order. So turn order will break that. First to launch and captain 4 boats of the same type. First to have 3 of the same license. Most launch boats at the end of the game. Most standard license at the end of the game, and first to launch and captain 4 different boat types. A little bonus of 5 points, nothing too big, but you can always throw these into any game, and it just gives you a little, thing to go for, to consider when you're bidding on things. Next we have the crab meeples. These are interesting. I haven't played with these yet. These are new for the Kickstarter. Basically, the first full boat of fish of a certain type will grab the crab meeple. So the first person to get a full char will grab a crab meeple, and then they get that, and that's worth 4 points at the end of the game. So it's kind of similar to the goals, but if there's a tie, we both fill up a char, it goes in turn order, and the tie breaks that way. Next we have this little chart here for single player, and you can also use these in 2-player, and these kind of act as a 3rd player or a 2nd player, and if you're playing solo or 2-player. And you can choose which captain here. The Kirkman captain is supposedly the easiest one, and the TC captain is the hardest one. Obviously has the better hair. And then you have this little chart here to track sort of its maximum bid ability. So during the phase, you'll basically flip a card off the top of the deck, and then if it's a 2, a card that's worth 2 gold, it will raise whatever the current bid is up by 1, up to its sort of maximum as the rounds go by. So obviously it's kind of simulating accruing money as the rounds go by there. And then the launch rules are basically a little different here for Kirkman and TC, and TC will launch a little bit more often than Kirkman. Do that. I was never that big of a hater on the 2-player game. I think this is a pretty cool addition, though. I would recommend people at least give this a shot. I do know that the 2-player could be a little bit sort of, isolationist in a way, because you kind of like you could pin another player and kind of run away with it a little bit maybe. You just get that hand advantage, and it's hard to come back from. But this is a cool thing. It's cool solitaire if you're bored to play through. I like this. It kind of reminds me. There's actually a solitaire variant for sale. This really reminds me of that. So if you like that, then I would take a look at this. It works. It's sound. So you can play with 5 and 6 players. You basically shuffle everything together, and like I said, I haven't done that, but that's pretty much all the stuff in the expansion. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. So I spoiled it already at the beginning. I said this is one of my favorite games of all time, and it really, really is. And the thing that is really cool about the expansion is the way that you can configure everything. I kind of alluded to that in the rules overview, but it's really cool because the game really plays out very much differently. It doesn't take a lot to push the game to that level where each play is going to really be different than the last. Just an addition of a few licenses, that Gone Fishing card really changes the dynamics of the auction. And then you got the crewman, that's going to change the values of the different licenses and things like that. It's really cool. So a lot of times you're going to have somebody that's going to go do like the swordfish strategy. They're going to get a ton of cards. You're going to have tugboats. You're going to get a ton of cards. But then you take all that stuff out of there, and then maybe that doesn't happen, and the game is a lot more playing nickels and pennies on the auctions and things like that. So it's going to be very much of a tighter game, and you can really sort of maneuver around each other a little bit better. I think was and I'm hesitating here because it really is going to change based on the setup. Like if you just had all the cards from the basic game and then you threw in the DFOs. I mean, that's really going to be a completely different game than if you had like the swordfish and the cod and then even like the salvage yard and things like that. If you have the salty captains from the base game, that's going to really speed up the fishing of the game, obviously. But If you don't have that, then it's not going to speed it up. So you have all of these different, variables at play here that you can really have very extreme games where, like I said, you throw in the COD and the salvage yard and the salty captains and all this stuff. The game's going to go super quick. There's going to be money flying everywhere. And then you have the other side of it where it's going to be very kind of nasty and cutthroat and, really pinching your pennies. So I like it. I like how the combos react because it's kind of like a, San Juan Race for the Galaxy kind of thing where you can do combos, but it has an auction. And so the auction is tied very much into your card, management, your hand management. So nothing really kind of hits that, think about it. I mean, are there any good card games that are auction games? And auction games are so usually bad nowadays. I mean, nobody does auctions anymore because, Knizia pretty much did every way that you could do an auction. So it's like, why try it? Go buy XYZ Knizia game and you got the auction you want. If you like Raw, you do Raw. If you like Modern Art, you do that. If you like Medici, a little bit more penny pinching, then you do that one. But, this is the game that hits in a nice spot, and the art is great. Everything is really cool, and it's going to be a little bit more accessible, like I said, for new players because you got the Gone Fishing cards, and it's got the variant there, which does work pretty good for the 2-player game. If you were one of those that probably wouldn't be watching this video, but if you're one of those that hated it as a 2-player and you played mostly 2-player games, you obviously moved on. I liked it 2-player. But this game would probably, expansion would probably salvage it for you, I think. So it would add enough dynamics to it. So really, yeah, I just have a blast playing this game. And, because this is why I like it so much. This, apart from the review, kind of a personal thing. I like it because it has the card combo stuff, which is like Magic the Gathering and Race for the Galaxy. I love that stuff. Just building your little engine, and then you get your wheelhouse going, and then by the end of the game, you're like, you've progressed as a fisherman or as a galaxy traverser. You're just, you feel more badass at the end of the game. But then it also has this auction element, which I don't know about other people, but the way that I play auctions and we play auctions, especially with my lunch group, where I mostly play this with, is we really like to slit each other's throat. We'll look at each other in the eye and just be like, I am making you pay double for this because I don't want you to have it. We get into the auctions. And to be, auctions can be a very sort of direct interaction, mechanic. And I think played with the right group that doesn't get too mathy about it. You have to be mathy because you don't want to calculate wrong. But, so it's got the 2 elements for me. The direct sort of slit your throat auction side, and then also like, oh, I'm building an engine, I feel good, I'm doing great, so even if I crap out on the auctions, then I'm still gonna feel good at the end of the day. Maybe I lost by 30 points, but you know what, I had a ton of lobster boats and I am the lobster boat captain today. So anyway, so it hits both those things for me. And so I think if you're into that and you're that kind of auction player, you like to be mean and nasty and shove the other guy's face in the mud. I'm really overselling this nastiness, but we get brutal with it. So anyway, if you like that stuff, and what's cooler than a game about fishing? How many games are there on this earth? I hate fishing. I take my son fishing when he wants to go in the summertime, and I do lip service to other relatives that want to go fishing. I freaking hate fishing. I hate it. It's so boring. I love this game. I love the theme of it. You get into the theme of it of like, I have this fleet and I'm making money and I'm gonna have my little boats and my naval fleet of fishermen out there. So there's no other game that really has a fishing theme. I think that's good. I don't know, maybe I'm probably forgetting one that's good, but anyway, so the theme of it's very unique, all this other things. So nobody's watching anymore. So, but anyway, it's a good game. I definitely get it. Maybe get back into it if you passed on the base game. Thanks.